I'm sure by now you've heard all the jokes. No Prime to die. On Her Majesty's delivery service. Die another day or same day before 10 p.m. with Prime. But what does the Amazon deal actually mean for the future of the James Bond franchise? It's just what you'd always wanted. Another middle-aged white guy with a microphone having an opinion on the internet. For that, I apologize, but I'm also going to try and provide a little bit of justification for making this video. First of all, I am a huge James Bond fan, as evidenced by the fact that I'm fully nerded out today. In the Asato Chemicals t-shirt, I'm rocking the No Time to Die Seamaster. I'm also a former film critic and former entertainment journalist, so I do have a little bit of knowledge about how the film industry functions and possibly a little bit of insight. And finally, people have genuinely been asking for me to make this video. People have been asking for my opinion on this, especially since my throwaway remark at the Global Poker Awards. As a lifelong James Bond fan, I'm freaking out about the Amazon thing. Let's cut straight to the chase, and with the caveat that I don't like to deal in absolutes, I do think there is a very, very strong chance that this is a disaster for the future of James Bond. I know there has been cautious optimism from other Bond fans. I'm thinking of people on YouTube like Calvin Dyson and David Zaritsky, the Bond Experience. I love those guys, a lot of respect for them. I think they're excited about the fact that this deal breaks an impasse and means that there is going to be more James Bond content. Sorry, Barbara Broccoli, I used that word. I get why they're excited about the prospect of more Bond films and maybe Bond TV shows. I'm less excited because I don't think they're going to be any good. And here is my personal take. Here's what I say as someone who's been a Bond fan since the age of 6 or 7 years old. I would be very happy if we just had what we have right now. The 25-movie James Bond film franchise, the Ian Fleming novels, and the continuation novels by authors like Kingsley Amis, Jeffrey Deaver, and Anthony Horowitz. If another Bond novel didn't get written, if another Bond film didn't get made, you know what? I would be okay with that because I'm very happy with what I have to look back on, what I can watch, what I can read. Equally, I understand why people want something new, but I don't think this is the answer. So let's talk about how we got to this point. And if we look at the James Bond films, they have been produced since the early 1960s by Eon Productions, Everything or Nothing, the production company founded by Albert R. Cubby Broccoli and Harry Saltzman. Saltzman was bought out in the 70s, so for the last 50 years, the Bond films have been pretty much a family enterprise, with Cubby at the helm, and in more recent years, his daughter Barbara and his stepson Michael G. Wilson. And they have done a great job of keeping consistency, keeping values. Look, I'm not going to say that every movie in the Bond series is great or even good. We all know there have been some duds. We all have to recognize there have been some films which haven't met our expectations. But no one sets out to make a bad movie, and at least there does feel to be a consistent tone of voice, consistent brand values, to use a marketing term, in how they approach the series. And that series is very interesting because if you look at the films from 1962 to 2002, from Dr. No through to Die Another Day, they are meant to be a continuous series of films. It's meant to be the same character, albeit played by different actors. And I am not even going to acknowledge or discuss the really stupid theory that James Bond is a code name given to different agents. It is very clear. There are numerous references in the movies that this is meant to be the same person. I appreciate it's completely implausible, considering it spans 40 years of time, but just go with it. It's cinema. And then things change in 2006 when we have the reboot with Casino Royale. Just to be clear, Casino Royale is not a prequel, it is a reset, as we have a young James Bond in the contemporary era, earning his 007 status and going on his first major mission. And then we have something that is pretty unprecedented. We have a series of movies that are effectively interlinked, which are almost sequels to each other. Now, that interlinking is sometimes a little bit clumsy. Spectre, I'm looking at you. But overall, the 5 films that Daniel Craig made, the 5 films in the reboot series, are pretty solid. And as everyone by now knows, they conclude in No Time to Die with James Bond dying. And this is the problem I think that Broccoli and Wilson found themselves in. They painted themselves into a corner, and I think they found themselves in a creative cul-de-sac. They didn't know where to go next. Do you reboot again? You kind of been there, seen it, done it with Casino Royale, and it's very hard to top that movie. Do you pick up where you left off in the previous timeline after Die Another Day? Do you do old James Bond with Pierce Brosnan as a retired agent? Do you do a series of period movies going back to the Ian Fleming stories and doing maybe faithful adaptations of Bond versus Smersh in the 1950s? I genuinely don't think they knew what to do. And I don't think during the time from the release of No Time to Die in 2021 through to late 2024, there was any evidence that they had a strong concept, that they had a script, or had seriously talked to any directors. And the irony is, everyone just got distracted with the whole who's going to be the next James Bond, when in reality, I think that was the furthest thing from their mind, because they don't cast an actor as James Bond until they have a screenplay or until they have a director. So all the stories we saw about people like Aaron Taylor Johnson, I think were bullshit. The story that I think did have credibility is the one that appeared in the Wall Street Journal just before the end of last year, which said that there were clearly creative tensions between Eon Productions, between Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson, and the new owner of MGM Studios, Amazon. And there is that famous quote from Barbara Broccoli that the people at Amazon were fucking idiots. And I can believe that she said it. I think it's slightly unfair. I don't think these people are idiots. I don't think they're morons, but they are working to a specific agenda. They referenced that the Bond films were content, because that's how Amazon sees motion pictures. Content to fill a streaming platform. Clearly, their values were not aligned with Barbara Broccoli's. And we all know that it is business, but also there is an element of art. I believe, in fact, ironically, the motto of MGM is art for art's sake. Anyway, as Orson Welles famously said, if Hollywood was about making money, they would make cars, because a lot of movies still lose money. People make movies for reasons other than just making a quick buck. People want to make a statement. They want to make a contribution. They do want to create, for want of a better word, art. But with this clear deadlock between Eon Productions and the newly rebranded Amazon MGM Studios, what was the solution? What was the way forward? Well, Amazon found the solution. They threw money at the problem, and they've effectively bought out Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson. And I understand why they would take that decision. Number one, Michael G. Wilson is now in his 80s. He's been involved in the movies since the early 1960s. He co-wrote a decent number of the films, by the way, throughout the 1980s. For him, it's time to retire. And I wish him all the best in his retirement. Barbara Broccoli wants to do other things. She has passion projects beyond the James Bond films. And again, I don't think she knew where to take the franchise next after that really dramatic punctuation point that was the ending of No Time to Die. So they've cashed out, and now Amazon are in control. Let's just reflect on the official statement, by the way, that was put out when the deal went through. Amazon MGM Studios, Michael G. Wilson and Barbara Broccoli today announced that they formed a new joint venture to house the James Bond intellectual property rights, and those parties will remain co-owners of the franchise. They will still make money from this. I'm talking about Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson. They'll probably get an executive producer credit. They will probably still get back end, but I doubt they will be involved in the day-to-day, as the next sentence makes clear. Under the terms of the new venture, Amazon MGM Studios will gain creative control of the James Bond franchise following closing of the transaction. And we don't need to go any further in the article. It is Amazon who are now calling the shots. And we now have this bozo on social media doing open casting for James Bond. And I appreciate that the future of the James Bond films and likely TV shows will come down to the creative team that Amazon install. There is a slim chance that we have people in charge of the 007 films who are as deeply passionate about this character, about this series, as its former owners, Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson. But as I said at the start, I do think we're drawing thin, because these people, and the reason why Barbara Broccoli dismissed them as, quote, fucking idiots, is because they are following a different agenda. They are just trying to create content for a streaming platform. And that's why I do think we're going to see the creative quality decline. And I do think we're going to see the character, the brand diluted. We've already seen one terrible spin-off in the game show 007 Road to a Million, which really looked like it cost a lot of money, but was really, really bad. Luckily, it was so far removed from what the James Bond films, what the James Bond character was, that no one really cared about that. But believe me, we could well see a spin-off series about Moneypenny. We could see a spin-off series about the guy with a glass eye from No Time to Die. They will find a way of exploiting anything and everything they can to create overlong miniseries after overlong miniseries, after film, after animated series. You name it, it's coming, and it's coming soon. And to be clear, I'm not worried so much about the Americanization of James Bond. People are like, oh, it's now owned by an American corporation. It kind of always has been. I'm just more concerned that the agenda, what they're hoping to leverage from the billions that they have spent on MGM and the probably hundreds of millions that they've spent on acquiring the creative rights to Bond, they need to cash in. And I'm really concerned about how they are going to cash in. And as I said at the start, I personally would probably be happier if we could just leave things where they are, have the Bond movies that already exist, and not have to worry about the legacy of Cubby Broccoli, Harry Saltzman, Barbara Broccoli, Michael G. Wilson being pissed on from a great height. I really hope I am wrong, but I fear that is what will happen next. You may disagree. You may be excited about the fact that we are finally going to get more James Bond content put out into the universe by Amazon MGM Studios. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Please subscribe to the channel. Please give the video a like. I'll see you soon.